The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and welcome to the FMCC's World FM Day Celebration webinar, Can Too Many Properties and Priorities Run You Over? Presented by Graham Tier, Head of Property Management for the Hong Kong Jockey Club, moderated by Jessica Bixel of DXC Technology. I do want to thank everyone. As we said, this is World FM Day 2018, and IFMA is actually celebrating World FM Day week. So check into hashtag World FM Day and also hashtag IFMA World FM Day, so you can see what's going on with IFMA specifically on these days. And this is actually our second to last presentation, so we're happy to have everyone here with us. And FMCC always likes to bring attention to the other councils and communities here in the IFMA family. We have councils that are industry specific and communities that cut across different FM fields, such as technology and workplace design. So if you have any interest, we'd love you to check those out. And here's the FMCC vision and mission statement. And I do want to let everyone know that they have been muted for audio quality and this webinar is being recorded. If you have any questions during the webinar, please feel free and type them into the chat box and we'll go over them during the Q&A portion at the end of the webinar. And we may also enact the hand raise feature. We'll have an open discussion. The FMCC would like everyone made aware of their different services that they provide the FM community, such as Ask the Expert, Find a Consultant, which you can find by going to engage.ifma.org on our online community. And there you can find under directory is Find a Consultant. And you can search all the FMCC members if you're looking for a consultant. They also have Locate a Speaker and online educational resources at fmcc.ifma.org. As always, we'd like to thank our sponsors for helping make this possible. We have ISS and Opposite Security Consulting. And then we had exciting news today. Those of you that remember Laverne Deckard, she is still involved with IFMA and FM standards. So here you can see that we have just released the approval of ISO 41001, FM Management Systems requires guidance for use. And it's a very big deal. It provides a roadmap for aligning FM to core business strategic requirements and will, for the first time, enable organizations worldwide to review and recognize the practice and deliver a true facility management support service. To learn more about ISO and the TC 267, or get involved, you can certainly go to that website or contact Laverne directly at lcdeckard@gmail.com. So this is some great exciting news that we're having. And I'm happy to turn over to our moderator, Jessica Bickel, and Graham Tier, I believe, has joined us now. So I'm excited to turn it over to the both two of you. The floor is yours, Jessica.
Hi and hello, welcome to World FM Day. As he said, I'm very excited to be able to moderate this presentation for you. My name is Jessica Bickel and I'm a Territory Manager with DXC Technology. I am quite excited to present Graham Tier, Head of Property Management for Hong Kong Jockey Club. Also, I believe Kudo Sardu, the incoming chair for IFMA. And Graham, I believe you were also recently interviewed by a mutual friend of ours, Mike Petruski, for his new Workplace Innovator podcast. I'm very excited to hear that. Is there anything else you'd like to say about yourself before we get started?
No, Jessica, I'm pleased to join you this morning, Hong Kong time. I would just make a note that my title is Head of Facilities Management, not Property Management, but it's no problem whatsoever. And looking forward to having a chat with you.
I do apologize. All right. Well, why don't we go ahead and get started then? The title of this project is Can Too Many Properties Put You Over? Would you like to get started?
Sure. So currently, one of the things I've been working on over the last few years is really looking at the different types of properties and how these properties are managed. So for example, in the portfolio that we have at the moment, the properties are broken down into different what we call clusters, such as retail, residential, commercial. In fact, we have race courses is what we consider as one cluster as well. And then, so we manage the portfolio in these different clusters. And then we have the different expertise in order to execute those plans and strategies for the different clusters. And the skill set is, whilst it's all FM, the skill set is slightly different, and we need to customize the skill set for each of the portfolios. So the residential portfolio will be managed slightly different to that of the retail and to the corporate portfolio, for example.
So what do you find it being the biggest challenges in sorting the skill sets necessary for these different clusters?
Okay, so one of the challenges with FM, as you know, is that because it is an emerging profession, it's getting the people with the right skills. There's only we have a limited pool of resources, and particularly in Asia, we find that we are constantly looking, and we have to groom this talent internally. We can't get it from the market. We can't just go out and hire, someone who's got 10 or 15 years experience in FM. So it takes time to groom these people in the workplace.
You mean to tell me that we don't just grow on trees?
Exactly. Exactly. So I think this is the challenge, and then making, as the foundation said, making IFMA or making FM the career of choice is one of the key things. I think. How do we get these kids out of university and school to say, Mum and Dad, I want to go into FM. I want to be a facilities manager. This is one of the things that I love about the foundation's program, really driving this, making the FM the career of choice, because that helps us in that, in that talent acquisition, and really helps us get those people into the organisation, then train them up with the relevant skills, which is where IFMA does a brilliant job. The networking and the site visits and the communication with different colleagues who are running different operations, and learning is really about what the value proposition that IFMA brings to its members.
Absolutely. I think it probably doesn't occur to a lot of students to look around at every building they enter and exit throughout the course of their daily lives. Every commercial building has to have somebody manage it, and quantifying that, I think, will go a very long way to getting people excited. Tell me, you mentioned training up people, and I know we talk about technical skills a lot when we talk about FM, but what are some of the soft skills that you think are important to being able to juggle these multiple, sometimes conflicting priorities that we come across in our work?
So the number one skill that you need to have is obviously stakeholder management, stakeholder engagement. In FM, you're not just dealing with one department, you're dealing across the whole organisation, whether it be from car parks, whether it be all the way through to the data centres, or all aspects of the built environment is what we're dealing with. So the range of stakeholder engagement, I think, is one of the keys. The key, you're either successful or unsuccessful based on your ability to be able to interact with those stakeholders.
And how do you look for those communication skills, being able to switch from the tactical mode, addressing immediate issues, prioritizing what needs to be addressed first if you have multiple issues or challenges on your plate, and then from there switching to a more strategic mindset, macro 30,000-foot planning view when you're speaking to the C-suite?
Yeah, this is a really good point. I think you have to be able to deal with both. You have to be able to present to senior management, these are our energy plans, these are our energy targets, this is what we're doing, or this is where we need funding for infrastructure. Whereas at the same time, you've got to be able to deal with mailroom issues or whatever it may be. And I think if you look at the individuals that are behind these services, let's take the building engineer, for example. He's very much an expert in what he's doing. And so this is why in FM we need to make sure that we build a cross-functional team which has all the different skill sets in the team. Because an engineer may not necessarily ever want to be anything but an engineer. He may, his customer service approach, he may not have the same skill set as someone who's running the front desk, for example. And so I think we have to make sure that we have people in the right roles doing the right job, but at the same time we grow their skill set by looking at other areas where we can develop them in the profession.
So it sounds like a cross-functional team being very important. There's got to be a good level of trust between yourself and all of the technical experts or all of the frontline staff that you deal with every day.
Yeah, agreed. Trust is one of the key elements in a relationship, as you know, and that takes time to develop. It can be easily lost, but it takes time to develop that trust. And having, I think there's really a number of things that you need from the FM staff, and one is obviously the values. So and then they need the skill sets, and so we need to make sure that, and the competency, that we need to make sure that all those three exist. So their values need to align with what the organisation values are. Their skill set needs to be aligned with what the tasks are that they're doing and how they're going to do them. And then obviously the competency is key.
So as we talk about the importance of building your cross-functional team and finding those experts that you can utilize for the success of your properties and your portfolio as a whole, tell me how that scales up. I know that your portfolio is quite large and decentralized as well, yes? So you have these cross-functional teams across a large area, geographically speaking, as well.
Correct. So we're one of the larger property owners in Hong Kong, definitely, and just the as-built is on 10 million square feet of as-built, and so as I mentioned earlier, we really break the portfolio down into clusters. So if you take, for example, our corporate cluster, so the lady I have running our corporate cluster is, she's a seasoned corporate real estate professional. And so the sort of things that the expertise that she brings to the organisation is in moves and changes, in office redesign. So we've just finished restacking our main corporate office building. We've done 10 floors. We've transitioned just on 5,000 staff over the last 3.5 years. We've transitioned. We started up a new corporate office building. So the skill set around corporate office is very different to when we then say take the retail cluster, which is talking about dealing with landlords, dealing with the majority of the retail cluster we own privately, but there are some that we lease. But you've still got to deal with the base building landlords. You've got to deal with these sorts of issues, and so the skill set is slightly different again. And then so in essence, the first thing you've got to do, look at the portfolio, and we look at three things. We look at, first of all, any geographical location related synergies, and then we look at the different types of assets, and we group the assets like assets together. So, you know, residential, whether it be a flat, whether it be a house, whatever it may be, that's residential. And so then we apply a different strategy to each of those depending on the criticality. So under residential, for example, we tend to, or not tend to, we outsource the majority of the FM services for residential. And we do that for a strategic reason, because we can then distance ourselves slightly from because our residential portfolio is primarily for our employees to reside. So we then can have better control over cost, and we can control the expenditures a lot better using an outsource model. When it comes to the corporate operations, which are key to us with, you know, the data center and other critical infrastructure, we tend to our strategic model for that is insourcing, because we really we can't afford any mistakes. We need consistency in the resources being deployed, and we really have a high reliance on those particular assets. You know, in saying that, within the portfolio, if it's a non-critical corporate building, then obviously we can look at outsourcing for that. But you've really got to look at each cluster, and then each of the activities within those clusters. Are they core business? Are they not core business? And what is the impact or risk associated with operating or running that function? And do you then need to retain that function in-house, or can it be outsourced? And what's the cost benefits or cost associated with those decisions? So that's pretty much how we strategize and how we work around this portfolio. And I can tell you, it took me over 12 months of strategic planning to come up with the overall, what we call the FM strategic model for the club, in order to get all these assets clustered and grouped into the right areas.
And within the operational models, I can definitely see where the value is of keeping them clustered. It's interesting, though, from your perspective, you're looking at them from the 30,000-foot view above these clusters. Have you communicated lessons learned between the clusters, things that have happened in one perspective that have allowed a lesson or an improvement in another?
Yeah, it's a good point. So what actually happens is, you know, we have regular, you know, bi-weekly sessions as a team, and then in those sessions, what happens is each of the cluster leads will present their performance, and it's not every 2 weeks that each cluster presents, so they rotate through. So, for example, if the corporate cluster presents this week, 2 weeks later, the retail cluster will present. 2 weeks later, the residential cluster will present. And what happens is that they share their business performance for that cluster. Okay, so how they're going against budget, how they're going against service levels. So they're really sharing that information to the group. And we use that platform then to talk about what's happening across the organization, and how do we, you know, what are the lessons learned. But it's a valid point. You want to really, you know, if we've got contracts that are spanning multiple clusters, which they can do. So some of our term contracts, we have currently about 170 odd contracts in place supporting our facilities, which includes things like, you know, maybe a landscaping contract or whatever it may be. But when we do it, we don't just do it for one building, we do it across the portfolio. So, you know, we may find that contractor works well in the corporate portfolio or the race courses, but doesn't deliver as well in the residential. So therefore, we have to look at the reasons why. And those meetings are really key to help us understand those things.
Well, it certainly sounds like the flexible and dynamic organization that you've put together is enabling this success.
Hmm. It takes time, Jessica. It takes time. It takes a lot of energy. And I think that the key to it is the staff. It's the people. And as I said to many people, that your ability as a facilities manager, you have to have a couple of key things. The most important one is to be able to attract, retain, and develop your staff. If you cannot do that, you will not be successful, because you have turnover, you lose the expertise, you'll get inconsistent delivery in services. So you really, as Steve Jobs said, you need to be a talent scout, and I think this is 100% correct. A good facilities manager is a talent scout. He's always looking for the best resources to come in to run the corporate, or the best resources to come in and run the retail, or the residential, or the race courses, whatever it may be. So, our role is really about that talent, that search for the perfect talent to come into the organization, and then to groom them, and retain them through development.
One of the things that sounds like also is being able to communicate to your staff that they are part of the solution, that they are facilities management. I mean, at the end of the day, is about enabling the success of those occupying your environments. So being able to keep them engaged and invested in the success of the company overall by the success of the facilities management and the property management areas is very important. What advice do you have? Oh, apologies. Keep going.
No, that's okay. I think there's three elements that we've touched on. The first one, which is really about we've talked about the strategy, and then we've talked about the people. But the next one is really around the technology, right? One of the things that I've done over the last 14 years that I've been there is really use the technology as a game changer, right? Use technology to motivate the teams, and to be seen as a leading organization, as opposed to just following. And so we've invested heavily into building technology. We've got, I believe it's one of the largest private networks in the world for our building technology. All of our buildings are linked through a private network, and we're able to control and monitor those buildings by central control rooms or remote. So those sorts of infrastructure and technologies are key. We continually pushing the boundaries on technology, and this is a good motivator for the team as well, because they then see, well, we're innovative, okay.
Mm-hmm.
But in addition to that, by investing in this technology, it has a number of things. One of our key objectives is obviously to reduce our impact on the environment. Buildings globally are seriously one of the main contributors to carbon emissions and to global warming. So I think our ability as facilities managers to really reduce our impact on the environment is critical, and we have to be proactive. And I think, as we heard at the last World Workplace about the next industrial revolution which is coming, changes in mobility, changes in communication, and these sorts of things, and particularly the Internet of Things, is going to change the way in which we do business. And we're already seeing that. If you look at the latest building that we finished in 2015, which is a communication and technology centre, a corporate building housing over 3,000 staff. That building is using the latest technology. It has, there's no light switches on the wall. It's not like that. It's all computer controlled. And so this technology is here now, and it's how we embrace that as facilities managers. And I think that's what makes the profession more exciting, So the use of technology to attract the talent, attract the people, retain them, and gives them a fresh lease of life. So, and then obviously the last one is the processes, which are the three key elements that IFMA also talks about, which is the people, the people, the processes, and the technology. So,
I have to say I agree. I think facilities management is poised to be the breaking edge of that wave when you think about how much real estate facilities managers across the world are responsible for and the amount of impact that we as an industry can have
exactly.
in protecting the environment and becoming carbon neutral. So it's very exciting.
So look at the Paris Agreement, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Paris Agreement cannot be implemented without the support of facilities managers. You can't even gather the data for building performance. All that data about building performance comes from facilities managers. And so we play a key role here in really supporting these global initiatives as well.
I think we also are poised to play a key role in communicating that to sometimes even the companies that we work for and being able to assist them in achieving those goals as a company by being right there and ready with those pieces of information, that data and that knowledge.
So that's a very good point you raised, and that is, how does FM get to the table, right? How do we get to the boardroom? What do we need to do? And one of the successes I believe that we've had is that we've used this whole sustainability energy reduction programs as a means to demonstrate our ability to deliver on results. And I think what we need to do is we need to show the organization that when facilities management says they're going to do something, they actually deliver it and they hit the targets. And I think this is one way that we can show our value in an organization, and it builds our credibility, it builds the trust, and it then gets us that, I think that seat at the table that we're all trying to get to in order to raise the bar on the profession.
Absolutely. And being able to speak in those strategic terms and proactively address problems that may not have been raised yet or bring solutions to the table. I think changing that perspective on a much larger scale as to how facilities management is viewed will be key. And I really think that our ability to provide those solutions will be an underlying driver to make that happen.
But I wanted to share with you one other thought, Jessica, because the other challenge that we have, and this is a challenge that we face as well, is that when everything is running perfectly, right, our job is being done.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the problem. So the better we do our job, the better the facilities run, and therefore there's no communication about FM, right? Because basically people take it for granted that when they go into the office in the morning, the air conditioning's on, the lighting's done, that the power to the buildings maintained, the water systems are maintained. They take this for granted, right? That's the level of that's what they expect when they come into the office every day. The challenge for us is that actually behind the scenes, there's a lot of work being done to ensure those services are to the required levels. And I think as facilities managers, and that's why World FM Day is so important, facilities managers are the ones behind the scenes, making sure those lifts are serviced, making sure those buildings are maintained, and that critical infrastructure is there when the organization needs it. And so I would say that we have to really do a better job at communicating what it is that we're contributing to the business on a regular basis and how are we supporting the business. And that's key in order for us to be successful.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. It has almost been historically where if you do your job, you're invisible. And if you can achieve that invisibility, you've been successful. But going forward, I don't think that's the answer. Being successful doesn't mean being invisible, and I think we're redefining facilities management as being successful as being the one at the table, saying we've brought this value to the company. We are not necessarily just a cost center anymore. We are a solution center, and being able to sell
What's
that
that saying?
mentality.
What's that saying? If you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
Pretty much. But I'm not certain, facilities management is becoming so proactive. We're being so enthusiastic about it now. I've got so much hope that as we progress, we're going to find a way to bring our own chair to the table rather than wait for an invitation.
Yeah, I think we've got to be smarter, to be honest with you. We've got to ride on the back of these initiatives, these global initiatives like the Paris Agreement and these sorts of things. We hold the key to getting these things done, but we've got to be more strategic in how do we get engaged in these. So that's what I think is the challenge for the profession.
Well, and I think that's where IFMA becomes a great value. We have the network of experts here, and we will be able to find that knowledge, that skills.
Yeah, IFMA has
so that we can bring that solutions in.
Yeah, IFMA has a number of benefits. It drives, first of all, it's the largest member-centric association for FM in the world, right? Over 24,000 members, which then allows us to provide the best networking opportunities for the profession through its chapter bases and through its conferences, through its events. And so, and then on top of that, you've got their IFMA's education and credentialing and training. So, those three things, our membership base, our events and networking, and then our education and training. IFMA is a great value proposition, and it's a great thing for our staff to be involved in. I know in my organisation, they love going to the IFMA events to catch up with fellow colleagues in FM that are running other buildings, to talk about what they're doing. It is a community. FM is a community, and I think
absolutely.
that IFMA is the glue that brings all that community together and holds it together. And this is why it's so important. For me, we've got to make sure that we keep that membership base strong and that we stay united.
Absolutely. Our facilities management is so dynamic. I'm not entirely certain it's possible to be the expert in everything that we will deal with over our careers. So IFMA is a great place to find the experts and connect with them. And the more we do that, I think the more we enable the success of everything as a whole.
Look at the diversity in the communities and councils. There's, you got airports, you got pharmaceuticals, health, so many different sectors, right? I think, it's a great profession. It's just getting that recognition that we deserve is the key.
And I'm certain we will get there. And I hate to do this. I'm sure we could sit here and talk for hours, but I think we are coming up on time. So, Graham, give me one piece of advice to wrap this up with. We've covered a lot of ground, and I'm certain that our listeners are interested to keep covering that ground. But give me one thought you'd like to leave us with.
Well, what would be the one thought? I suppose that for those of you who are working in FM, you've chosen the right profession, in my opinion. It's the right industry. It's an exciting time to be in FM. There's certainly a lot of opportunity, and I think we all have to work hard to raise the bar and to make sure that we get the recognition we deserve. So yeah, I think my key closing is it's an exciting time to be in FM.
And once again, I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. And to everybody out there, once again, thank you for joining us. Please don't forget to follow us at the FM Consultants Council, fmcc.ifma.org. I believe we have one final wrap-up event happening tomorrow. I believe it's 7 a.m. Central Standard Time.
Yes.
Graham, thank you again.
Yeah,
So,
thank
yes,
you, Jessica.
Graham,
Have a wonderful day.
Yep, thank you. It was great, and it was a great wrap up. Our last full presentation, as Jessica said, we have one more tomorrow, just summarizing everything else. We would like everyone to join us if you can, and thank you very much for attending. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.